Fanfic Corner, presented by Jennifer. New Light, a Star Wars Rebels fanfic. But are we crazy? Sabine asked him. Her voice echoed along the empty storage and dimly lit room. I know, a lot to take on, and we're still fighting against the Empire. You and I both know that it's coming to an end, though, Ezra replied. Sabine did know. She had been feeling the end was coming for months. The end of the war, the final battle. With everything Leia has done, the destruction of the Death Star, it all seems like a closing in finale. And she could feel it in the galaxy. The change was coming. Every species, every planet could feel the change. And he was sure they would win. The change is coming. The Empire is leaving. I know, Sabine agreed, but Ezra, we don't know exactly when. And it's a big responsibility. Are we actually ready for this, Ezra? Ezra grinned lightly, hoping to lighten the mood in the room. You don't think so? Ezra asked. Ezra, maybe. The Jedi stared at her. He could both sense and visibly see the conflicting thoughts that she was having. The thoughts that both of them have been having for the past week. The reason why they had to sneak away from the rest of the crew and hide in a storage room so that they had some privacy to really talk about the matter. They hadn't told anyone else about the situation, and they didn't want any other opinions coming in. They wanted to focus on what the others thought. Their thoughts of, we want to, conflicting with, but should we, making anything else harder to focus on. Yeah, it is, but Sabine, it'll also be our baby, Ezra emphasizes. Oh, did she know that feeling? Her baby, his baby, their child that they would grow and raise. Sabine always had her doubts about wanting to be a mother, but now that she had the chance, she realized she wanted to grasp it a lot more than she thought she would. But both Sabine and Ezra knew that they had to think about this. It was, in fact, a baby with a lot of responsibilities, and even though she was 24, she didn't know if she was actually ready for them, especially with the chaotic state that the Empire is in, and with what it could be no matter what side wins the war. And honestly, it scared her a little. Sabine groaned. Okay, yes, but I don't know if I'm ready to have a kid. I don't know if I'm ready to have a kid, Ezra. It was a fair argument, and Ezra knew that. Sabine would be the one to have the baby, not him. The baby would grow inside of her, and change her body. She would have the baby, not him. You know that I'd support you through everything, Ezra told her. Support, true and constant, was all he really could do during the whole process. But he would. I know, Sabine promised, her tone genuine. She gave him a small smile, but it soon faded slightly. Ezra's own slight smile completely faded as well, and she watched as his shoulders moved up, as though like a barrier, and his head went down slightly. Sabine watched his face fall, and she felt like she was looking into a mirror. His expression was what she felt like she had every time she thought truly considered terminating the pregnancy. Looking down again, she closed her eyes for a moment before looking back up at Ezra. I'm crazy, Ezra, but she sighed, moving to run a hand through her hair. I want to do this. Every time I think about it, something just keeps telling me to say yes. Ezra's shoulders deflated slightly in surprise. He looked up, slightly shocked as he sensed the glow of excitement and happiness starting to rise in Sabine. He could fears as well, but it was greatly overshadowed. The end of his lips started to tug up as her words really started to process through his mind. Really? Ezra asked, before suddenly slight panic set in and he began to stumble over his words. I don't want to pressure you. And you're right, the Empire and things are changing. And, right. Sabine smiled and walked over. She couldn't help but giggle as Ezra nervously started to ramble. She took his hands and she stopped them from gesturing and moving around as he talked. Ezra's voice slowly faded and he looked down at her as she looked up at him. Sabine squeezed his hands. Yes, Ezra, Sabine confirmed. I think we should do this. Despite everything going on, I want to say yes. Ezra, I want to do this. Sabine's smile only grew as she watched the smile on Ezra's face suddenly burst into a radiant light. She couldn't help but giggle, a tone of happiness as she watched his eyes light up. Really? We're going to be parents? Ezra asked, his smile wide and contagious. Sabine's face was lit up as well. She let go of his hand when Ezra pulled his own up and moved to run down the back of his head, slightly fidgeting as the thoughts fully began to process in his mind. He looked at Sabine and smiled widely. We're going to have a baby? He asked excitedly, and as though to make sure. Sabine smiled and nodded. She giggled again at Ezra's ecstatic face. Ezra was laughing a little himself. He smiled widely. We're going to have a baby? Yes, we are. Sabine smiled as she watched Ezra go through the emotions. She watched as Ezra's smile was still bright as the fidgeting and movement stopped slightly. Even his excitement didn't. His voice was softer this time, a bit heavier, and was starting to become thick with emotion. I'm going to be a dad? He asked, as though he didn't believe it. Sabine smiled and brings her one hand up to gently caress his cheek. She nods in confirmation, and her smile brightens. Yes, Ezra, you're going to be a dad. He stares down at her, his smile somehow becoming brighter and wider. I'm going to be a dad. He nods to himself a couple of times before he starts laughing lightly, his shoulders shaking in the movement. I'm going to be a dad. Sabine hopes that she would never forget the smile that he wore as he came to that realization. How his eyes moved deeper into the sense of love and wonder, and she swore that she saw them starting to sparkle as he laughed for no other reason than because he was so happy, and somehow the emotion needed to be let out. The Mandalorian moved her arms to lightly rest around his shoulders. Ezra moved closer to her as well and closed his eyes, smiling as he felt her forehead touch his. His own hands moved to circle her waist and hold her close as well. The peacefulness of echoed room seemed distant, as though it was just them and nothing else. We're going to have a baby, Sabine whispered. She closed her eyes and felt her own light-hearted laughs escape her lips as Ezra continued his. Laughter of happiness, of emotions that couldn't be held inside because they were so powerful. Yes, Sabine realized. This seemed so right.